Starfield versus Squadron 42. It's a fun conversation that's been sort of lingering in the background, sort of percolating since a few people have mentioned it. I know some people wanted me to make a video about the comparison between Starfield and what is being built with Star Citizen, but I don't think that's really the accurate comparison to make because Squadron 42 is the single player version of the Star Citizen experience, which makes it directly comparable to Starfield, which is a single player RPG experience. So let's dive in today. We're going to be discussing this in full. If you're someone who gets triggered by discussions around Squadron 42 or Star Citizen or Starfield, I'm really sorry. Um, I don't get triggered by those conversations, and I'm having fun with it. So we're going to dive in today. So I think when I look at the potential for what Squadron 42 has, I think that it is kind of like it's Starfield on a much larger scale. Assuming, and this is the thing, we're assuming they get everything working the way they want it to. And who knows when it's actually going to release? I think they said it was feature complete as of last year, at the end of last year, but who knows what that means? It still means it could be another 2-3 years of polish. We just don't know. But I do know that looking back at the past experiences I've had with the Wing Commander franchise and Freelancer, what those games offered me in terms of an RPG experience while also having the space component where you've got dogfighting and everything else. Those were always really fun games for me. And where Starfield and I think Squadron 42 have both sort of expanded upon since then is we have the addition of all these planets and the potential to go explore a larger galaxy out there and a solar system and everything else. And then we've added layers on like crafting and skill trees and everything else. And the big thing here is that looking at the difference between Starfield and Squadron 42, at the base level they're both going to be RPG experiences. Well, I guess they are both RPG experiences. I keep talking about Starfield like it's future tense. It's not. Starfield's here and Squadron 40. But you know what I'm talking about. Both offer a spacefaring RPG. So you've got, here's my avatar. I have a main storyline I can go through. There are various ships that I can choose from and fly. There's missions I can do. There's side quests. I'm part of this faction. And we're going to be going off and exploring different planets, and we're going to be exploring space stations, and we're going to be doing not just the RPG element of questing. We're also going to be doing the first-person shooter component, and we're also doing the dogfighting. The difference, I think, the main differences that I see between Starfield and Squadron 42, based on what I've seen so far of Squadron 42 and based on what I know of the Wing Commander games of the past and Freelancer, is that it's looking especially at all the mocap they did and everything else, the cinematic storytelling component of Squadron 42 looks to be way beyond what Starfield offered, and I think that also goes towards I seriously doubt we're going to get any sort of like R-rated content in Squadron 42. I think it's going to be another PG-13 experience. But I think the difference here is, as much as I love Bethesda games and I have fun in Starfield, and it's my favorite Bethesda game to date, there are things that I'll definitely poke fun at. Like sometimes the NPC interactions can feel a little flat. Sometimes, not always. The main quest lines are pretty good, but occasionally you'll find some of them that just feel a little off. And everything I've seen so far in the footage I've watched of Squadron 42 and the previews and everything else, it does not look to be the case. That game has got a dynamite cast. I can't even, off the top of my head, Mark Hamill, Liam Cunningham, Gary Oldman. There's a huge list of actors and talents. Mark Strong, Gillian Anderson, like they all have come in and done. And this was several years ago when they filmed all their mocap, and they've put that to good use in all the footage that I've seen so far. So I think that, at least as far as my expectations for Squadron 42, I'm expecting a similar play style to Starfield, with more of an emphasis on the dogfighting and the ships, as opposed to Starfield, which has more of an interaction. It has more of an emphasis with the interaction of your character with the game world. And so your character has all the perks and all the skills and all the things you could do. There's all the research components for building outposts. There's all of the shipbuilding components that you're going to be able to dive into in Starfield. I keep saying that you're going to be able to. You already can, so I apologize. It's like 11 o'clock at night, guys. As opposed to Squadron 42, which I haven't seen any of that as part of what they're offering. It's more of just a streamlined, here's your, your dogfighting RPG FPS in space. There are skill trees and things that you can go through, and there are various ships that you can get. But as far as I'm aware, there's no shipbuilding in Squadron 42, nor is there any outpost building that I'm aware of at this point in time. So this is where we get into the discussions of, like, I know we've had a lot of people come into Starfield and be like, it needs to be more like No Man's Sky, or it needs to be more like Elite Dangerous, or it needs to be more like Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. It doesn't need to be any of those things. Starfield does its own thing. It is a Bethesda game. Bethesda does that RPG thing really well. We've seen it with Skyrim. We've seen it with the Fallout, 4 and other games in those series. Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, Starfield is just sort of like the pinnacle of what Bethesda can do when we start expanding beyond a fantasy realm or the Fallout realm, and actually get into space and having 1,000 planets. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past, where the potential for the expansions for Starfield is where things really start to open up, because you have those 1,000 planets to choose from, and we can go put content on all of those planets over many, many, many years. Plus, there's the modding scene for Starfield, which, as I'm aware, is not going to be a thing for the Squadron 42 experience. So there are quite a few differences, even though there are a lot of similarities. I think that for myself personally, because I know how much I enjoyed the Wing Commander series in particular, I think it was Wing Commander 3 and 4, which was when they really started leaning heavily into the live action actors on screen, which, again, Mark Hamill was there as well, along John Rhys Davies, Malcolm McDowell. There was a great cast in that first, I think it was Wing Commander 3. And that was it was like playing through a movie. You were a part of that film experience. It was that cinematic narrative storytelling that I love so much. It's one of the reasons when I look at like Starfield versus Cyberpunk 2077, as much as I love Starfield, Cyberpunk 2077 wins the day for me by leaps and bounds, even though it doesn't have any ship combat, because of the fact that it offers me that science fiction cyberpunk narrative, cinematic storytelling. I feel very much a part of that experience, if that makes sense, as opposed to Starfield, where I'm more just immersed in the character and what that character's journey is. It's slightly different. I don't know if I'm making myself, I don't know if I'm articulating what I'm trying to say there very much, but quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload, or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Based on what I've seen in the past from Chris Roberts games, I love the cinematic storytelling that he offers, and everything I've seen about Squadron 42 so far looks to be living up to that reputation over the years. Now, of course, we don't have a launch date for this, but I would anticipate over the next couple of years we might see some Squadron 42 finally hitting our shelves. I've always told people that I backed the Star Citizen Kickstarter years ago. I've played the alpha a few times over the years. I'm not heavy into it just because I don't want to go out and invest in a flight setup and everything else to really get into it until it's launched. But there are already full-time content creators around Starfield and around Star Citizen, excuse me, and like what Star Citizen is offering in terms of the persistent universe is very interesting. But the direct comparison here is that single-player experience that we're going to be getting with Squadron 42, which is going to have all the things that Starfield has. And I think for people who were looking for more of a hands-on ship aspect. Like I want to be able to manually land and take off. I don't want to see cutscenes for all that kind of stuff. I want to be in control of my ship. Then I think Squadron 42 is going to provide that experience in a way that Starfield didn't. I personally have no complaints about the way they do it in Starfield because I like animation sequences, and it's totally okay for me to have that animation sequence as a loading screen between space and a planet. I'm okay with that, but I know a lot of people want more, and I think that that's where we're going to see Squadron 42 sort of branch off and not necessarily be a better game than Starfield, but offer a slightly different experience, even though at the core they both offer the RPG components, the skill trees, the first-person shooter, and the dogfighting. I'm really excited for what Squadron 42 has coming down the pipeline, but I also love Starfield, and I'm still having a great time. It is my favorite Bethesda title, and we'll be continuing to play for the next few weeks. Plus, we got outpost building and shipbuilding just around the corner. I am getting ready to wrap up my second playthrough story-wise, though. So if you want to tune into those, daily streams happen here and on Twitch. There's a Patreon and a Discord so you never miss an update. And I'll see everybody in the next one. So until then, stay safe. Happy gaming.